Should be a cracker. Let's go to my next guest in the program, Labor Senator Tim Ayres. Thanks for your time. I've got a couple of topics I want to get to, but first of all, just the breaking news this afternoon and what's happened there in New South Wales. Concerns after we've got a link to hotel quarantine, a security guard working there, contracting the virus, and then working shifts elsewhere. Would this be a surprise if security guards were allowed to be working in hotel quarantine and taking up shifts at other places concurrently?
Well, firstly, it's a reminder, isn't it, of just how careful we've got to be all around the country to avoid the risk of additional infections and to keep the infection rate down. I think you're right. Firstly, at a broad level across the community, we've seen just how damaging casual and insecure employment has been during the pandemic. It's clearly had an impact in the Victorian, in the Victorian second wave. Secondly, I think you're right. Why on earth would casual security guards be in a position where they are working shifts at other locations? We've got to run a tight ship in hotel quarantine, and I'm sure as we learn more, there'll be a lot of focus on that question. It's a good question.
But it's hard to find an answer, isn't it? And I get we're coming at this, both of us, in fact, with some facts put on the table only recently, so without casting aspersions just yet, if that were the case, if there was any permission for security guards or it wasn't made clear they shouldn't be working elsewhere, that seems like a terrible error to have made.
Well, as you say, it's very early days and the focus of authorities here in Sydney has to be on the track and trace, the contact tracing operation that they've been running in New South Wales. That's got to be the focus, but it's a real reminder of how careful governments have to be, how careful every ordinary Australian has to be following the public health guidelines, making sure we keep each other safe and keeping that infection rate down. And it's a reminder of the corrosive impact of too much casual employment in the labour market and what that means in the course of the pandemic, but also in terms of ordinary people's lives, being able to get along and do the things that that people should be able to get out of a good, decent job.
Onto aged care, Labor's been expressing a lot of concern about the government response on all of this. The government did accept on Friday. Errors have been made, there are apologies, and they pointed out changes that have been made as since. Are you pleased with any aspect of their response?
I'm not sure what has to happen for Scott Morrison to take responsibility for the role of the federal government. In this case, in aged care, they allocated, made a significant announcement about an allocation of funding for aged care for what they called surge employment. There was a warning to the government in April that 70 to 80% of Victorian aged care workers might not be able to turn up for work because of the risk of infection and people being tested and infected with coronavirus. Less than half of that allocation's been spent. I mean, what on earth is going on in Richard Colbeck's management of this portfolio? What on earth is going on in aged care? We know that the sector's been in crisis. The Aged Care Royal Commission, step by step, has been demonstrating for Australians the depth of the crisis in aged care, and that's got sharper in this pandemic. More than 230 older Australians have lost their lives. 141 aged care centres in Victoria, at least, with an infection. There is. Yes.
So, just a little bit limited on time, but let me ask you this, because the government's been pushing back against some of the claims put forward by council assisting in the Royal Commission. Are you concerned when we get to the final recommendations and report, the government will push back against aspects of that as well?
Well, the thing here to do is to take responsibility for the system. They are the Commonwealth Government. Their responsibility goes beyond the press release, the press conference and the announcement. It actually goes into the delivery and the hard work. And Australians should expect that there should be a high standard of care for aged care. It's a growing sector. We've got more and more Australians entering aged care over every year. And we need a Commonwealth Government that's prepared to step up to the plate and do the things that are necessary.
All right.
Not to cut, not to abrogate their responsibilities, but take their responsibilities seriously. It goes much further than just responding to the findings of the Royal Commission, important as that is. It goes into whether or not this is a government that's prepared to step up and take responsibility.
All right. Just finally as well, you've called a government report that surrounds a push towards more gas and subsidising gas infrastructure about ideology, disagreeing about whether or not gas will be cheaper than renewables plus storage. Does that clash, though, with a lot of industry? I mean, you've got a background of manufacturing union. A lot of industry is saying in the next few years in particular, and put it out to 10 years, affordable gas is vital.
Well, there's two separate problems here, Tom, of course. One is a push by some in the coalition. We haven't seen the COVID Commission's The Secret report. Everything that the COVID Commission does, if it's done anything, has been kept secret. There is a push from some in the coalition to push us towards gas for electricity, for the production of electricity. Well, the price of gas has tripled since Tony Abbott became the Prime Minister. We are, as a result of the failures of the Howard government, one of the world's largest gas exporters. We're exporting gas to the world for a price that is half what gas is being sold for on the east coast of Australia. The rubric through which we should examine the question of gas and any other power source is firstly through price, secondly through lowering emissions, and thirdly through jobs. And if the argument's about gas for electricity production, no, those are three priorities that can absolutely be delivered. But let me come to the second set of problems. The second set of problems is gas security for manufacturing businesses, particularly those manufacturing businesses where gas is not a substitutable feedstock. And we have a crisis in manufacturing that is entirely a product of the failures of the Howard government and successive governments to secure gas supply for those businesses. That's the issue which we should be focusing on. It is a fool's errand to be off chasing the idea of gas being the solution for our energy policy needs. The energy policy sector, it needs two things. It needs a plan, and we've got a government that's had 19 plans over 7 years and not delivered on any of them. And secondly, we need low cost, low emissions energy, and gas. Gas just doesn't stack up in terms of electricity production.
We might get more on the supply another day because there's still plenty of standoffs going in Victoria, even over conventional. But as I said, perhaps another day. Tim Ayres, thanks for your time.
Good on you, Tom. Thanks.